Too many ecom founders that are building such great brands are struggling way too much with their profitability. And I will now show you how to make an extra 40% profit in the next 90 days with your ecom brand. That's exactly what we did in that specific case with this brand. I'll show you the numbers. It's just a specific sequence of implementations that need to be done in order to achieve this. So without any further ado, let's get into it. The multi-millionaire retention process, how to make an extra 40% profit in 90 days. The problem is that most ecom founders have no clue about the impact on profitability of retention revenue. And I'll visualize that for you in a second. They just hunt the lowest rabbit all day long. Okay, return on ad spend is what they worry about most of the time. And that, of course, is an important metric, but it's not the determining factor for your profitability within your business, even though it doesn't even taste as good as the retention rabbit. And I will show you how to not only hunt, but how to easily shoot the retention rabbit in a second. So here, before we get into things, is the profit paradox. So here we visualize the impact on your brand's profit by making an extra €1,000,000 or dollars if you want in revenue, okay? So if you make $1 million with retention marketing, you keep 730,000 of that. If you make, giving the same assumptions here, $1 million with customer acquisition, meta ads, influencers, TikTok ads, Google ads, whatever it is, you keep 330 of that. Okay, so it's way less. So the assumptions given here are that you have an 80% gross margin, €5 shipping costs, 1.5% transaction fees. Actually, you should correct it to 2.5. That gives you a retention margin of 73%. And if you have a return on ad spend, average return on ad spend of 2.5, that gives you an acquisition margin of 33.07%. You can run the numbers yourself if you want, if you think that is too crazy, but that's actually how it is. That's the difference. If you only focus on that revenue, your head will eventually explode, right? And you will maybe, as so many ecom founders out there do, go into burnout. And if you get enough of the retention revenue, the blue one here, you will just worry about buying that Porsche 911. Should I get it in midnight blue or deep sea blue, right? That's what you're going to worry about. So, and that's what you want to worry about. Okay, so we want to get more of that retention revenue. Okay, and by the way, if you want to run the numbers yourself, I have a calculator down below within this docs where you can run the numbers for your business. Okay, let's look at the numbers of that client real quick. By the way, here's a Loom video attached where I go through the actual dashboards and you can see the actual numbers. I reload the dashboards, you see that everything's real. I rounded the overall revenue here to simplify this, okay? But all the percentage numbers here are 100% accurate. Okay, so we get through this and we have a revenue without email of 11 million, 11.8 million, okay? And in the case before we started to work on this, before we started to implement this retention engine, we had an email revenue. We're just looking at email here, and actually the impact was greater than email because it also included subscriptions, and that's not even included here, but it's fine. That alone gives us good visualization of this great impact on profitability. So email revenue before was 3.1 million, afterwards 7.7 million. So that went from 20.8% to 39.5%. Total revenue from 15 million to 19.6 million. That's an uplift of 4.6 million per year, right? And that's what's way more is a profit uplift of 41.9% in this case, okay? From 11 million in profit, front-end profit, obviously before fixed costs and so on, 11 million in profit to 15 million in profit, okay? Again, front-end profit. Right, and the usual problems why most ecom founders within their business don't have that uplift, in my opinion, is that their customer data is completely fragmented across multiple tools. They have no one place where they store all valuable customer information that they can utilize for retention, which you need to utilize in order to have results like this. They have a completely generic messaging that is not aligned with buyer intent. I'll give you an example, right? So you might have a product, and that was actually the case for this brand here. You might have a product and some people buy it because of their bloating and other people buy it because they want to lose weight. And the product helps with both pain points, right? But if you send the same generic messagings to both of these customers, no one will really feel addressed. You need to talk bloating language to the bloating people and lose weight language to the lose weight people. And that's exactly what we started doing here. And I will show you how to set that up in a very simple way. That's the next point. Minimal subscription or upsell logic. They have no personalization at all. Okay. And first name in your email does not count as personalization in the context of this video. So how do you actually set that up? Step number 1, customer profiling and data enrichment. Okay. So we need to know the customers as good as we possibly can. We need to know their goals, their motivation. Why did they buy our freaking product? We need to find that out, okay? What's their intent? What categories do they buy? What is their lifetime spend in our store? How often do they buy? Frequency, okay? What are their personal pain points? What is annoying them on a daily basis in relation to the problem they want to solve with our product? It could be, I want to lose weight because the daily pain point that's annoying them every single day is my jeans don't fit. I always have to breathe or stop breathing when I button up my jeans, right? That could be something like that. And we need to have that pain point for as many individual customers as humanly possible and then address them individually about that. And that's just so powerful. How do you set that up? First of all, you need to gather the data. Okay, and the easiest way to do that is using Shopify and the post-purchase survey tool. I recommend Fairing for this instance because it integrates very seamlessly also with Klaviyo. And then you need to gather front-end buyer info on top of that, okay? So having specific landing pages for specific angles, even though it might be the same product, right? Having a landing page for the bloating angle, having a landing page for the lose weight angle for the same product, and we know which customers are coming through which landing pages, and then we have all of that information, and we can categorize these people and talk to them in their language and talk to them about the things they actually care about, and suddenly our open rates, click rates, purchase rates go through the roof, right, with our existing customers. Then we need to integrate that data into our CRM. The easiest way to do that, like honestly, Klaviyo as your CRM will be sufficient in 99% of cases, okay? So all you need to do here is you need to set up an integration where you automatically throw all the data from your post-purchase survey, and in the best case, you need to build that yourself with Make automations. Also throw all the data from front-end buyer info into your Klaviyo so you can build these custom segments in there. Then obviously enriching the customer profiles. That means you make sure that the customer data is getting synced to every single Klaviyo profile. Whatever they filled out in a post-purchase survey, that needs to be synced. If Cassandra buys a product and then they fill out the post-purchase survey, right, and they answer 5 questions, and the last questions, they write some text, right, about their personal problem and so on, then all of that needs to be stored in Cassandra's Klaviyo profile. That is very important. Then Cassandra gets automatically drawn into specific segments. And then also, if you want to take this a step further, you have AI agents that write personalized, like completely 100% personalized emails to just Cassandra based on the text that she filled out in a post-purchase survey, right? And then it's where things get crazy because customers suddenly not only feel addressed by your messaging, customers really get the feeling that you care about them, and that makes a huge difference. So then that needs to be saved as custom properties in the Klaviyo profiles. Obviously, then once you have that foundation, step number 2 is the segmentation itself and targeted messaging, okay? So what you do is you create segments based on all the data that we gathered in step number 1, okay? So you create segments based on the angles, okay? Weight loss, bloating, leaky gut. These are all different segments where I need to talk a different language to those specific people. Then you can create segments based on the pain points. For example, jeans don't fit, overthinking every single meal because I'm afraid of getting bloating, and so on, right? Always worried about where the next toilet is, and so on. These are all different pain points that I can, again, use for the segments. And then if you make emails about where the next toilet is for these people that are constantly worried about that, and that's, for example, one subgroup for this client, and then they feel addressed so well. They feel understood. Finally. And that builds such an insane connection with these people, right? And that makes them to click more and buy more. So based on their spend, obviously, having segments for the VIPs that spend the most and buy most often, and then obviously on their behavior, right? That's the basis, okay? So like frequency, how often do they open, how often do they click the emails, and so on, right? Then we need to craft targeted messaging, okay? I would do 4 evergreen campaign concepts for all of these different segments, right? And then, for example, you have the transformation of the month. Okay, so for the bloating segment, from super bloating, and you have a customer review where they shared the before and after story, and then you share that, right? And so on. And so that's the first very simple idea for a concept. And you can do a science breakdown why your product works so well. You can do a founder's voice. You can do challenges with your customers and so on. These are some ideas for evergreen campaign concepts, right? That you can roll out throughout the entire year, because to keep that retention revenue high and get your existing customers to buy more often, you need to keep the communication with those customers interesting. If it's not interesting to them, then they will just stop opening your emails, right? So that's why you need different concepts that are all interesting to these customers. Then obviously planning campaigns for these specific angles, and then creating flows for these specific angles. Okay, and here very, very important, first of all, upsell flows. Okay, so I talk leaky gut language to leaky gut people, and based on that I make them a leaky gut upsell, right? So that makes sense for the leaky gut people. So that's what you do, and that works super well. And then also to sell the subscription, the same exact way that I just went through. Step number 3, once you've done all of that, is email campaign systemization. So what I would do, obviously have an email calendar in place and send 3 to 4 per week. Obviously, you can do way more in strong seasons, like right now, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. On the craziest days of the years, you can even do up to 4 campaigns per day. Okay, but that you should limit that to 3-4 days per year. Okay, you shouldn't do that on a constant basis, because otherwise you will constantly mess up your domain reputation and you will only land in spam, right? So, but that's besides the point for now. So good average is 3 to 4 per week. And here is a complete email conversion checklist. Okay, so how to send emails in a way where you get the maximum conversions out of your existing customers. Okay, so you spend the most maximum money and buy as often as possible from you. All right, so first of all, you always need an irresistible offer if you make sales/promo emails. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. You don't always want to do that, but if you do that, you need an irresistible offer. The offer will be the most relevant factor for the success of your emails, for your retention marketing in general. That needs to be clear, it needs to be valuable, and it needs to be different from what you usually do. If they always see your ads with 30% off and then you make 30% off email, that's so boring. That's what they always see. That's what they've always seen before, and it's nothing new, and that's why they don't buy, right? So it needs to be different from the usual discounts or what you usually do. Clear and simple. Okay, so every single email you send out needs to be very clear, very simple, easy to understand. The reader must know exactly what the email is about in 3 seconds. Okay, so it needs to be skimmable, and you want to define one clear goal per email. And here are design templates that are linked for you here in a Google Docs, and you can just walk through that. Use these design templates for your emails. And even I categorized them even into specific categories like value emails, social proof emails, sales and promo emails down here. We can look through that in a second. You always want to have your call to action above the fold. So when they open the email, they should not scroll. They should have the call to action right away, clickable without scrolling. Very important. Visual hierarchy. Keep your design simple. Okay, one image, one message, one type of button. Okay, so what is the clear one message you want to convey with that email? If you have 3 messages, make 3 emails out of that. Don't bust it all into one email. Okay, that gets too complicated. It needs to be understandable in 3 seconds. 3 different messages in one email are not understandable in 3 seconds. Avoid over-designed graphics that distract people from what they should actually do, right? Which is probably like click on a specific offer and buy that. Make it skimmable, as I mentioned before, okay? Use trust and social proof. Obviously, show real people, real customer reviews, and that builds credibility. Mobile optimization, I don't have to tell you that 80% of people will open this on mobile. Use large buttons, short headlines, vertical layouts, super important, okay? Test this thing on your phone, especially when it comes to image sizing and load speed before. Don't just preview it on Klaviyo, for example, on the phone section, really send it to your phone and look at it. Sending to engaged segments only, okay? So here's the foundational 8-figure CLV segmentation checklist, okay? Very, very simple. I will not go through every single of those segments right now. Here is the most important segments that you should have. Here is their definition, so you can set it up in Klaviyo, and here is how and when to use them, okay? Segmentation is extremely important. If you don't do that well, your open rate will tank, has always been. And if your open rate is 20%, when it could be 40%, and you right now make $1 million a month with email, then you're leaving out on $1 million a month email revenue just because you don't use that, right? So that is extremely, extremely important, okay? So just here are the names of the segments. Here's how to set them up. Here's when to use them for your campaigns. It's very simple, okay? Consistency, okay? I would consistently send out 3-4 emails per week. Keep that consistency high for your revenue, but keep also the variety within your campaigns, okay? Don't just always make sales and promo emails. That's also what we don't do in that specific case, because otherwise people would get bored because it's always the same. It's always some offer, and you don't want to do that, okay? So you want to have 3 types of email. First of all, you want to have the educational email, okay, where you really provide value, and I would do that once a week, right? Then you want to have the social proof storytelling email, okay, where you build social proof, you throw in maybe some reviews and so on, and you build that up, okay? And then you have the sales promo email where you just push an offer, right? And by the way, you can just open these, you can look through the different email designs that are in here, and these are all email templates that work very, very well, and you can basically just copy and paste them for your brand. They're all proven to work very well. Okay, step number 4. Subscription personalization. Okay, so you set up automated flows to sell subscriptions based on the customer's needs and behaviors. We touched on that for a second before, okay? So what you need to do first is you need to start to match the subscriptions that you can offer based on the products that the people are buying, okay? Because not every subscription will make sense for every single customer. Simple question, based on which product can you sell which subscription? How long do these people need to use the product, or until they want to purchase again? You need to answer a question again. And then define the average time frame for that, and then start testing the flow sending times within plus minus 10 days, and then expand above or below that, right? So start testing with this. The sending time will be very, very vital, and it will make a huge difference on how well these flows perform that sell your subscriptions. You know that subscriptions are super valuable, not just for your profit, but for your brand evaluation, right? For the evaluation of your company enterprise value. So what you do is set up a subscription landing page. Keep this as simple as humanly possible. Here's an example from AG1 that is proven to work, and it is super simple. Okay, there's no fluff. That's no sales page for front-end customers. All you need here is a banger offer. The value needs to be way better for the customer than with a one-time purchase. I would definitely include a price anchor, right? So a double subscription, for example, that they don't really need, but you put it there as price anchor. It should be at least 2 times of your main offer. That's the offer you want to sell. The price anchor should be at least 2 times of that. This makes just this seem a lot cheaper than if you just offer 87 and nothing else. I mean, that's quite some money for most people, right? But if you have a price anchor, well, this now seems cheap, right? So that's super important. And then keep it simple and short. This is not a sales page for a cold audience. These people have already bought your product, okay? So no sales page, keep it simple, offer focused, and clean. Then setting up a subscription flow. I have actually put you a screenshot on how to actually set that subscription flow up, how many emails, with what time delays. You can basically just zoom in here, even though the quality of the picture is not great because it's so zoomed out and from my big screen, but you will be able to read it. And then you can just set it up like this, and obviously keep testing the timeframes within this. Step number 5 is then setting up a testing suite. This is super, super important. That's something that I learned from Jeff Bezos. He said, our success at Amazon is a function of how many experiments we do per year, per month, per week, per day. Okay. Obviously, we don't have to argue about the success of Amazon. So doing a lot of experiments, a lot of testing is super, super valuable to get ahead. So how do you do that? Set up a progress tracking sheet, okay? So just a simple Google Sheets where you track your open rate, your click rates, your purchase rates, your revenue per recipient, and your opt-in rate. Track those numbers weekly, and then very, very important, otherwise this won't work at all. Set up a weekly recurring meeting about this, because otherwise you will most likely stop doing that after 2 weeks and only get 20% of what you could have got, okay? So with the responsible people within your team, Worst case, you set up a meeting for yourself, but with the responsible people on your team, set up a weekly meeting for this, and then set up at least 2 to 3 tests in every of those meetings every single week. Okay, so this could be a test on offers for specific flows or specific campaigns, subject lines, sending times, the segments you use for those campaigns or flows, personalization that you use. Is it an HTML email or a text-only email? Sometimes text-only performs extremely well because it has way better deliverability than HTML. Then you review the results of the last week's test, you draw the conclusions, you implement the learnings. Obviously, you set the winners from the A/B tests live. Then you define clear actions, or even better, you implement during the meeting. Okay, speed of execution always wins. To see if this, what we just talked about, is worth it for you, you can run the numbers yourself. Okay, so here's a calculator where you just type in your total revenue, your current marketing spend, your cost of goods sold, your transaction shipping fees, and it will tell you with an average, and that's the average retention uplift that we have with our partners. It will tell you how much extra revenue, how much extra profit would you be making? What impact would that be on your profit margin of your business, right? So, and again, we're talking front-end profit margin before fixed costs and so on. So use that retention revenue uplift calculator, and ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Okay, so that's how you do it. First of all, you go through step 1, customer profiling, data enrichment. Then you set up the segmentation, targeted messaging. Then you start with email campaign systemization, so you get the maximum out of that. Then step number 4 is subscription personalization. And step number 5 is setting up a testing suite to get everything out of your retention engine. Okay, that is a simplified guide on how to set everything up. The docs is down below the video. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this video, leave it a thumbs up, leave it a comment down below on what you want to see next, or if you have any questions regarding this, and I will catch you in the next one.